So what we're going to do this period is we're going to flatten off a section of the handle that's going to go in underneath the poly tube. And the idea of that is that you're going to stamp in your initials or your name, or if you're giving it to somebody else for a Christmas gift or something, then stamp in their name, right? We'll get to the stamping in a moment. The way you set up the work in the vise is so that the top surface of that handle is slightly lower than the vise jaws. And the idea behind that is that you're going to use the side of the vise jaws like a bookmark or a stopper. When you file that flat, you're not going to be able to work any further this way to the left because the vise jaws will stop them. Right, so you make sure that the vise is nice and tight. You want that flat section to be long enough to stamp your name in, and more or less in the middle of where the poly tube handle is going to be. So the poly tube handle is more or less the width of your hand, so just work roughly in the middle of that. It doesn't have to be exact, but what we do want are nice, crisp, square ends to that flat section. So you'll start filing up against the vise jaws, right? Work your way a bit further. Oh, I can feel this file is very blunt. Work your way a bit further across to the right, decide where you're wanting it to end and stop, and make sure you've got a nice crisp square end where you're wanting it to end, and so you go. Right, you need to file until the height, or the width rather, of that flat section is at least 6 millimeters wide. Right, the reason for that is the letters that you're going to stamp in there occupy a 6 millimeter height. Right, let's set our finished work in now. Right, disappear quickly. Get out of here. Right. Now we nip that up in the vise. So those are our mates DeAndre and who's the other one again? Jake. Right, so nip that up in the vise so you feel as though it's about to shoot up out of the vise. Right, you're just kind of grabbing it just below the center height. Right, and the reason for that is that we don't want it to disappear into the vise when we start stamping our names. So before we start stamping, what you really ought to do is to take a finer file. I'm going to reach for that one over there, it's a second coat file, and we will draw file. So we're going to just file up and down. You can see I've got this at a slight angle, so we'll just adjust slightly. And in doing that, you actually end up getting rid of a lot of the coarse filing marks that you've left behind from the previous coarse file. When I'm happy that I've got a nice smooth surface to work on, then I can take my letters and punch them in. So remember the trick with the letter punches, you hold closer to the bottom than the top of the punch, rock it around slightly until you feel the letter sitting flat on that flat surface. How many times do we hit it? Anybody remember? Once. Hard. Right? If you hit it more than once, what happens? It's messy. It creates what we call ghost images. Right? So second one again. Really hard. What have we got there? M-O-P. Mop. Alright? So, once we're done with that, pretty much all that's left over for you is to get rid of all of the carbon and any rust that's on there by sanding, and we'll talk about that later in another lesson. So what we've done here is we've created a flat that we can stamp initials or a name into. Right, so you should have initials or your name stamped into the hammerhead and the handle. But are there any questions about what we've just done now?
No.
Simple and straightforward, is it?
Yeah.
Right, tell me about the ends of that flat. How should they look?
Square.
crisp and square. Be careful, it's easy to sort of skid up the sides. Right, thank you, off you go.